for the rest of their lives is being able to take text, analyze it, determine what's important in it, and then use it and apply it in new ways. So one of the most important skills we can help students with is becoming good at doing text-dependent analysis. So I'd like to share with you 6 components of developing a text-dependent analysis that you can then mirror and use in your classroom to help you prepare students at all levels with being able to do this task. So the first thing you've got to start with is knowing what your purpose is. You've got to know what's your target. What do you want kids to get from this? What are you trying to get them to learn? When it's all said and done, what's going to be the most important learning they're going to gain from doing this text-dependent analysis? So without that purpose and without those clear learning targets, it's going to be very difficult for you to pick the right text or to use the right questions or even to develop a task that's going to get them where you want to be. The second step that we're going to try to look at in developing a good text-dependent analysis task is to make sure we've got the right text. Text has to be appropriately complex for the kids. It has to be high quality text that's worth reading and rereading. It's got to be text that has a richness of content, but also is complex enough in terms of its reading skills and what it takes to read it so that students can really dig in and have some meat around it. We want to make sure that as far as we can, that we also pair that complex text with other pieces of text so students learn to take ideas from multiple texts. In this year of elections, that's really evident in terms of who are we going to believe or not believe when a claim is made. We need multiple pieces of text to be able to process that. And so if our text development, our text-dependent analysis task is to figure out which candidate to vote for, we've got to use multiple text to do that. And that's the kind of reason and the skills that kids need to be able to develop in our classrooms with our content as well. The third step is to kind of get that text ready for kids. We need to look at the text and say, how do we make this so that kids can read it easier? Can we increase the margins? Can we put some more space between the lines? Can we insert some vocabulary right into the text? Can we even put some questions in with the text so students are being caused to have to think about the text more deeply as they read it, and they have cues about how to do that. So we have the purpose, we've picked the text, and now we're going to prepare it for kids. We're going to think about what's the vocabulary we might need to front load. What kind of background knowledge do we want to briefly introduce? We don't want to spend a lot of time on background, and we don't want us to replace the text by giving them too much, but we do need to prepare them adequately for the text and think about that. The fourth thing that we want to do is then write the prompt itself. What's the text-dependent analysis prompt or task that we're going to have as like the final product of this work? So they have read it, they've answered some questions about it, and now we're going to come up with what's the big deal thing at the end. What's the learning piece that's going to combine all of what they've been doing into a task that makes sense and that is dependent on the text for evidence of, for supplying evidence and for adding information to it. That prompt is key to the whole process because it has to tie back to the purpose. We have to be able to say, well, if this is what I wanted them to get, does this text-dependent analysis really ask them to go back to the text and look for evidence that they can use in completing this task at the end? So the TDA is more of the big task, the end project, the end point of things. Once you have the end in mind, and you have the text, and you have the purpose, then we can start to backfill with the text-dependent questions. And that's the fifth step. In the fifth step, we're creating a cohesive set of questions that students can use as they move through the text and as they read the text, or as we ask questions about the text in the classroom, that will lead the students as a roadmap, so to speak, towards the text-dependent analysis. So in the lower grades, we want this to be a roadmap. We want this to be fairly explicit in terms of going from point 1 to point 2 to point 3. At the higher grades, we want it to be more road signs. So we're pointing them in the right direction, but they're ultimately responsible for becoming independent readers and independent in answering the questions. And those questions that we have crafted will help them get to and prepare them for that text-dependent analysis task at the very end. The last step in the process, and the sixth step, is now that we have our act together and we have the purpose, we have good high-quality text, and especially text sets. We have prepared the text. We've thought about what kids need to know before they approach the text. And we have developed the prompt and the questions that are going to get them there. The sixth part then goes back to the students and getting them ready. So the sixth step is what we're going to do to adequately prepare students for approaching this task. Having them begin to analyze, what do I need to do when I'm given a text-dependent analysis task? What am I expected to do? How am I going to break that down? How am I going to be able to look at that task, think about what it means to do it, how I'm going to what the steps are going to be that I'm going to have to do, and then put it all into play to accomplish the task. So there are multiple steps we can do to help kids be able to gather evidence from the text, be able to organize that evidence, be able to put it into some form of writing or some kind of product that will move them forward. So if we do our job in getting the text ready and writing good text-dependent prompts, then the kids are going to be better prepared, not just for learning in school and for state tests and other things. They're going to be more ready for life.